the STEMinism Equity in STEM podcast. Welcome to the STEMinism Equity in STEM podcast, brought to you by Vanta STEM. My name is Ali.
And I am Clive.
And this is the first episode of the STEMinism Equity in STEM podcast. So we'd like to keep it quite informal today. We're going to give you an introduction about who we are, why we're doing this podcast in the first place, and we're going to give you some insights of what to come. So, let's kick off with our background. So, Clive, can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up, where you're from, maybe what your family environment was like, and maybe how that shaped you for your career pathway?
Yeah, I can do. So I was born in little old Stevenage in Hertfordshire.
Yep.
My mum and dad worked in the hospital, so we lived in the hospital as well. My dad's a doctor. My mum was a midwife and nurse at the time. So I was rooted in science from a very early age, and also living in the hospital was quite a diverse mix of people and residents. I really enjoyed my time living in Stevenage, and then around the early 2000s, my parents relocated to Ghana, and my brother and I thought it'd be a wise decision to follow them as well.
Guessing that's where you're from?
Ghana. Parents are from Ghana, and it was great to live in Ghana. It was a change in environment, change in perspective. I got to learn about my culture, my people, and history. Black history isn't just a month out there. You live it and breathe it every day. Being out in nature as well. I loved being outside. We were the last generation that didn't have to say we outside because we were actually outside all the time. And I love the nature aspect of it. And I think that's what got me into science and biology initially.
Oh, lovely. Well, we definitely relate. I used to love climbing trees and being out in nature as a child. Can't say it's what necessarily got me into science, but I'm glad that we got there in the end. So I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I grew up sort of all over the world, to be honest. I was born in the UK, in Wales. My dad was at sea for, the first 20 years of his career. Wow. So we moved around quite a lot based on where my dad needed to be for his job. So lived in Swindon, in London, and at age 8, I moved out to the Middle East, to Qatar. Loads of sand, in case you were wondering. There was one mall. It was called The Mall. And there was also The Centre, very original. Changed completely nowadays, but that was the sort of upbringing. I moved back to the UK for university, and with a few heres and theres, this is sort of where I've been ever since. And I guess how my background and my environment shaped me. I went to a very multicultural school, very diverse, loads of different nationalities. So I think it sort of helped to make me understand that different people come from different starting grounds. Some people are, in the UK more gifted with speaking, proper English. Whereas others are, really into being bookworms. So everyone has their unique set of skills and backgrounds, and it was really nice to grow up in that cultural melting pot.
That's pretty cool. Not many people, I guess, have gone from sea to sand in terms of living, and that exposure, that global exposure to different cultures, different environments, different climates. So it's really interesting. Wow. So moving on maybe a bit from your childhood, what were your first early interactions with science? What made you want to get into science, and how did you find starting off your career?
Sure. So I used to watch Dexter's Lab. Unlucky to everyone who doesn't have Cartoon Network these days. I feel a bit sad for them. But Dexter's Lab, great TV show on Cartoon Network about a maybe 8-year-old kid who was a mad scientist. And that's where I became aware of science. I actually, I decided to take chemistry and biology at A-level. Don't know what I was thinking at the time because I knew they were going to be hard subjects. But here I was chasing the dream of being a doctor or a lawyer whatever
The top
background.
three, one of the top three, eh?
Exactly, one of the top three backgrounds that my parents tried to, imply that we walk for a career. And I elected to study biomedical science because I had a long-term plan of being a doctor, but I wasn't quite ready for the lack of sleep, the need to learn the entire Latin dictionary, and just the ridiculous amount of notes that I would have needed to take to understand the subject. So I decided to last minute change my mind, and I got into the University of Reading on clearance. So I studied chemistry, and I loved it, surprisingly, considering that I hated my A-level chemistry teacher. I managed to find my groove, and maybe in like second year, I finally started to understand this whole chemistry thing.
Yeah.
And the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, we'll probably talk about it at some point. But how about yourself? You said that you were, very, very keen nature goer, and this sort of sparked your curiosity. Can you talk about your journey into science?
Funnily enough, so many similarities. And so, as mentioned, my parents have been in the medical field for quite a while now. So, as the firstborn son, I felt I was going to be aligned to that mission as well. And actually, quite a funny story. So, I was doing some work shadowing whilst I was in secondary school in Ghana, basically witnessing a cesarean section of some twins at the time.
Oh wow! Front row seat.
Live and coloured. It was an early morning emergency surgery. I think I may have been out the night before, but that's a story for another podcast. And basically early morning surgery. Successful. Things are going well. The babies have been delivered, and the lady's basically been going back together for lack of a better term.
Sure.
And so whilst this process is going on, I feel the temperature in the room slowly rising. And long story short, I took a tumble.
Oh wow, you hit the deck. Okay. Oh wow. The temperature wasn't in the room, it was in your own body.
Like a light.
Wow.
And I remember one of the smallest nurses basically having to carry me out while this woman has just gone through a monumentous delivery of twins, and here's me just on the corner passing out. And so went and hid in the pharmacy, and I think it was whilst I was there consoling myself and wiping my tears, I realized actually, you look around, there's all this medication. Where does it come from? Who's making it? And how do I get involved? This is a bit of me, as they say.
It's important work, yeah.
And so kind of steered away from the medicine and headed towards initially pharmacy, which I realized that actually, I think at the time, my impression of pharmacy was being in a pharmacy and dispensing and prescribing drugs. That wasn't really for me. So I decided I wanted to find out that as another program. Dexter, shout out Dexter. I think he was my first mentor
Every time.
But How It's Made was one of my favorite
programs.
Oh,
yeah.
Discovery
Excellent
Channel.
Shout, yeah.
Anything and everything you want to find out, you sit there, you watch it, and you see the process.
That's the mark of a curious mind.
Exactly. So I pursued a degree in pharmaceutical science. Again, same clearing story as well. And I think it shows the importance of clearing as well.
Absolutely.
You need options after your initial options. And
don't see it as failure is probably a good thing. Just because you didn't get your first or second uni option and you going into a different university on clearance, that doesn't mean you failed.
Exactly.
It's just opened a different door for you.
Exactly. And sometimes rejection is redirection. And I definitely found that with my realigned purpose, especially looking back, the pharmaceutical industry was definitely for me. So I did my degree in pharmaceutical science at the University of Greenwich, which was great. And then I tried to enter the industry. And before I share my experience, what was it like for you transitioning from
getting into
university, soft life, enjoyment, to the big bad world of the 9 to 5, and even that transition and getting into it? What was it like for you?
Responsibilities, eh? So I maxed out 2 overdrafts at uni because let's just say I like to have a lot of fun, and I hadn't quite learned what financial literacy was. We'll save that for another podcast.
That's right.
But I graduated with a third, which I was very happy with at the time. I'm glad that I got a degree, considering that I probably had been working a lot of my time on my degree of drinking alcohol. So
we'll have a picture tagged just to reference that as well.
So came out with a third and applied for jobs and applied for jobs and applied for jobs and applied for jobs until I got sick of it. So I must have applied for 150 odd jobs between June and September 2011. And I just got sick of it, to be honest. So I had a chat with my dad about different opportunities, and he said, why don't you just leave the UK and go somewhere? So I thought, interesting. Europe? America? What about Australia? What about Australia? It's only 20 hours across the world.
That's what living at sea does to you, eh?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go to Australia. So I packed up all my stuff and I moved to Australia. And I found a job working as a chemist. I think I must have found this job in 20 hours of being in Australia. So it just goes to show that you might have the skills, but the job market for where you are, it was a bad time in the UK. I don't need to tell you about it, but for everyone else listening, it was a bad time in the UK for trying to get jobs, particularly in forensic science or chemistry, which is the sort of degrees that I've done. And in Australia, I found a job straight away. So I spent a year working out there. It was lovely. Really, really great time. Had finally got my foot in the door. So when I came back to the UK a year later, it was very easy to transition into roles. So I had a very promising, start to my career, even though I knew nothing about the professional world. And then soon after that, we met. We met. At Kingston University for our master's degrees. I don't know if you want to just tell me a tiny bit about your transition from your undergrad to your master's and maybe what you picked up along the way, which you then applied to your master's degree, which was different to your approach to undergrad.
Yeah, it was, I remember being over the moon that I completed my first degree. I did better than you, actually. I got a 2-2. So
no way.
Narrowly. I did.
It's a grading game.
And in all honesty, I don't think I wasn't proud of my 2-2. It wasn't something that I would proudly admit. I think on my CV it said second class, and I
left the 2
discreetly left the 2 out.
I hear that.
Some subtle tricks that we can teach you in application. But again, that's for a later podcast. I think I did carry a lot of guilt that I'd kind of been through this degree, spent all this time. And I think at the time as well, I also assumed that, once you get a degree, guaranteed you get a job after that. That was kind of the narrative I feel like we were sold, or the one that I certainly bought into.
I agree. No, I felt like I was sold the same thing. So.
And so, it went from throwing my cap and gown into the air. By the time it came back down, I was very swiftly humbled, in very similar to you, applying, rejection. Unfortunately, sir, on this occasion, and after a while, no matter how strong your mindset is, that stuff
it breaks
you. It will get to you.
You down.
It will get to you. And so, very similar to you, went to my mentors and my parents, and basically, I think they could see what the rejections were doing to me as well, and said, you know what? Come home to Ghana, come spend Christmas, regroup, let's have a look, and we'll take it from there. And I think initially I was a bit reluctant because it was almost kind of accepting that I hadn't been able to get into the job market.
It feels like failure, doesn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, once you graduate, all the questions start coming. Oh, have you got a job? Oh, what are you doing? And
your aunties.
You know about the aunties. Big up the aunties.
Big up all the aunties.
Motivation.
Big up all the aunties for motivation.
So it was. I went back to Ghana before 30 December, or what it's coined as now. And it was great to spend time with my family and my parents. And at the same time, again, it was a great opportunity to network as well. And so inadvertently, through speaking to people, tapping into my parents' network as well. I was able to do 2 internships with Dan Adams Pharmaceutical, which was at the time manufacturing antiretroviral drugs.
Okay,
so
cool.
the only company doing that in West Africa.
Wow.
And I worked from the warehouse to manufacturing to dispensing to procurement, QA, all different departments for a couple of weeks just to understand.
So it's kind of like a graduate scheme in a way.
Exactly. My own self-crafted graduate scheme. So I did that for 4 months. And then I also moved to a second company called Ernest Chemist, where I was working in the QC lab, analysing raw materials, finished goods, and was finally into the industry.
Very valuable early experience, though, because not only have you got your foot in the industry, but you've also sort of picked up cross-departmental skills, get a bit of a feel for how the different departments work.
Exactly.
That's really useful experience to get at such an early point in your career.
And one thing I'll add to that as well, you mentioned the job market at the time. I think we must have finished our bachelor's degree around the time of the infamous credit crunch.
Yes, yeah.
And applying for jobs at that
time. The Second Great Depression.
Was crazy. I mean, for an entry-level role, you're looking at the time, maybe 25, 30K. They wanted you to have 10 years experience, a PhD, and preferred attributes are a nice thick grey beard and a curly moustache. And clearly,
are you trying to say they're just trying to employ old white men? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Your words, not mine, but I think they get the gist. So, and also, it's hard to be what you can't see.
Yeah.
So
that's a very good point.
So it's a very good point. I think that time, I think we both we widened our scope of search from UK, London to actually, you went as far as Australia, I went as far as Ghana, but that's what got us that key 6 to 12 months that you need for the entry-level roles, the realistic ones anyway. And that was really important. So it was after I finished the internships, I decided that actually, I think I realized as well that as much as I loved Ghana, I needed to up my level of experience and expertise if I wanted to thrive in that environment as well. So I came back, and as you mentioned, that's where we united forces at Kingston University.
Absolutely.
I did pharmaceutical analysis,
and I did forensic analysis.
And I think we had some common modules in terms of separation science and analytical chemistry as well.
We did four modules or so together, which was really great to build that experience. And it's where the seeds for, I guess, this podcast were originally sown. Surely we weren't thinking about starting a podcast, but
definitely not.
It was the beginnings of our collaboration. Yeah, so
that's right. Big up to Kingston.
Big up to Kingston University.
One thing that I think was really underrated at Kingston was that we had a really diverse student body, and so even in our lectures, we had a bit of a crew, a bit of a I don't know whether we were more Avengers or Misfits, but probably somewhere in between. And we had people from Greece, from Dublin, from Morocco, from Tunisia, from Ghana, from Qatar, Egypt, and all these different places. Everyone comes with their own experience, their own expertise, and a lot of the time overqualification as well.
Absolutely,
especially for a master's degree. We were on courses with doctors, pharmacists, engineers, and that was a great way to grow the network as well.
Keeping it cross-departmental. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me a bit about how your focus changed going from your undergrad degree to your master's degree, and then we'll talk about the outputs and afterwards.
Well, you said it rightly not too long ago, misfit. That's probably what I was during my undergrad degree. I was a misfit, learning more about myself than about my degree, which, don't get me wrong, was very valuable and probably the foundation of who I am today. But I think what was really, really helpful actually was after university, taking a couple of roles in industry. I worked for maybe 3 companies, BP, Castrol, a company called Intertech. So, I was working for these, generally well-known corporates, getting a bit of an understanding of how to structure your day and your work. So not treating it like a part-time degree where I'd occasionally go to class and then, try and memorize my entire module's worth of work in the last 3 weeks before the exam. Instead, I was sort of treating the master's degree like it was a job. So, going to class, finishing class, going to the library, trying to take notes. I was trying to get my 6 to 8 hours in per day, and really just treating it like I would a job, because I guess I'd had the experience of what working was like, and that structure and that routine and that discipline really, really worked for me, and it helps me to get ahead. So yeah, I really just applied those skills to my university degree, and I know that they were helpful to the people around me, in that I was a bit of a pusher. What are we doing after class? We're going to the library, right? Yeah, let's go to the library.
One thing I can attest to is that this guy was an A1 note taker. In fact, I've probably still got some copies in the loft. His notes were immaculate, and I think by this time I'd learned to play to my strengths. I wasn't great at taking notes, and so someone's got a great set of notes, and I can photocopy them. That's great.
Take them. They're just notes.
Exactly, and I think also that was what was one of the benefits of having a diverse team. We had people who were great at interpreting data. Yeah. We had people who were great at taking notes, people that were great at presenting.
Yeah, I mean, you had the practical skills. You're a natural-born public speaker, and I'm sure you were handling a lot of the presentations in group projects and things like this.
At the time, I think it was more just gift of the gab. And if you ask me the right question at the right time, I may be able to churn out an answer. And I think I probably got that
that's
from
a skill
from
in
my dad
itself.
as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think also from a change in perspective, I think by the time I got to my master's degree, I realized the importance of fine margins. And I was there to do a master's degree, but when you're in a highly competitive job market, if you've got a master's degree and someone's got one with a commendation and someone's got one with a distinction, if you're all very similar, those are the fine margins that make the difference. And
yeah, absolutely.
By the master's degree, we weren't here to play. We were here to get the job done and move into employment. And one of the reasons I chose Kingston University was the opportunity to do a placement. And that was key for me.
Wow,
because
I'm sure.
In my bachelor's degree, summer times were for enjoyment, as they say. We were out there enjoying, whilst others were doing internships, summer internships, some were seeking mentorship. And so these were the things, kind of lessons that I'd learned from the harsh experience of the highly competitive market. And so I think these are the approaches that I changed. And you went on to be the poster boy of our year, valedictorian, as they'd say. If you're in America, you'd be reading out the speech at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'll pass it over to you. I'll write it and pass it over to you.
Great collaboration there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think I definitely have to give you your flowers. You were, I didn't know you before, but you were academically so, as you said, a bit of a pusher, but also because you set the standard so high, no one wanted to be left behind. We all felt encouraged to come along in the mission, and we all played to our strengths as well. So rather than struggling at things that you're weak at, we tapped into each other, collaborated, and the results were clear to see. Distinction, merit, as opposed to third and second class degrees. It wrote those wrongs. I remember coming out of that degree feeling like, I've cancelled that tutor. It's a master's degree with merit now.
Yeah.
Respectfully.
That's it. We definitely leveled up. I think that's the sort of, to summarize what you're getting at here, is we realized that we needed to level up, and then we stepped into that role. And then recognizing that maybe in a team, everyone has their different roles, everyone has their different background and their different skills. How can you all utilize those skills so that as a group you all benefit?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's, I mean, just company advice in general.
Yeah.
All right, so go on.
I was going to say from there, I think even after that, we stayed as
we
used to go climbing quite a lot. We went to the Science Museum a couple of times for some late
events. Looking through those pictures recently, actually.
Exactly. And so I think also what was important in maintaining that friendship was kind of the accountability that we had for each other.
You were basically mentoring each other.
Exactly. And usually people think of mentors as someone 10 years or a whole lot more experience, when sometimes actually it's just someone to go on a similar journey with you. And
someone who can give you good feedback, advice, maybe someone who's in the industry, and someone who you can bring your problems to, really, and lay them out on a plate.
Exactly.
He's going to give you honest feedback.
Exactly. I think there were several occasions when either we were applying for jobs or negotiating salaries, and I'd call Ali up and we'd do the interview prep on the phone. He'd say, no, you can't say that. This is what you'd go with. And I think also more importantly, with salary negotiations...
You're going to ask for how much?
Exactly. And sometimes you need someone else to give you that audacity. And I remember there were numerous times when I think Ali was applying for a role and he'd say, oh, he's going to ask for this much. I'm like, no, fam, you're worth X times 2, fam. He's like, I don't want to step in. No, go for it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold,
it pays off.
Exactly.
It pays off. Yeah.
So I think that accountability was really important, and also the motivation side of things as well. Ali gets promoted. Firstly, it fills me with joy, but also it fills me with motivation as well.
Yeah.
My boy has leveled up.
What am I doing?
Exactly. So over the course of, since we've graduated, it's almost been, you move, I move. Okay, what, you're doing that? Okay, I'm going to have to up that. And, I think, and that was really inspiring as well.
I think we've done a pretty good job at sort of following each other and supporting each other in this way. And it's been a good journey. So let's fast forward a little bit and maybe we can talk about the beginning of Vanta. So set the scene. 2020,
global pandemic.
Global pandemic. Oh, wow. Global pandemic. We're all inside. What was it? June 2020.
Yeah.
We see some just awful footage.
9 minutes that changed everyone's lives.
9 minutes. Yeah. I'm sure you know what we're talking about. If not, the tragic murder of George Floyd in 2020, which, I mean, it shook the world, didn't it? People really didn't care that it was COVID.
Yeah.
I saw people all over the streets, and people were pissed.
Yeah.
It was the first time I think I've seen white people care more about racism than I do. So it was a really, really powerful time. I don't know what it was like from your perspective.
I think it was. I think even if you look back in time, we had Rodney King how many years ago? But I think it was being able to see it so visually in front of you. I mean, the phone technology these days outweighs satellites that we sent to space in the 60s. And so being able to see it so close, so visual for 9 minutes is something that I think everyone could relate to. And because of social media as well, even though we were all in our homes, we were all able to unite under this movement and realize that this isn't right. This isn't something that should be happening in this day and age. And as you mentioned, we're in a global pandemic. I think we spoke several times around that, and it was like, what can we do in our area of expertise, in our sphere? And you think about attending protests, you sign up to petitions, you attend the webinars,
the black squares,
exactly, all of these different things, and still, I think there was still that feeling of there's more to be done. What happens when people stop talking about George Floyd?
Sure, So, and that did happen.
Exactly.
So it was a very powerful call to action. So that actually inspired us in Black History Month, where we are today, halfway through Black History Month. To start our brand, Vanta STEM. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about Vanta STEM?
Yeah, so...
And then maybe I can talk about our values.
Yeah, I think, as mentioned, coming out of George Floyd incident in 2020, fast forward to Black History Month in October, and we felt like we had to do something in our area of expertise. And so we decided that we'd start off by celebrating Black scientific excellence. So pioneers in engineering, science, maths, technology, from as far back as Cheddar Man and Roman Emperor Septimus Severus that ruled over the UK. these were things that we
BC.
didn't know about prior to this. So it was the call to action was to learn and study and find out about our own history and culture, especially
particularly
in the UK.
Britain. Yeah. I mean,
Snap.
the US story is prolific. Everyone is very engaged in that story, but I think we were really, really lacking on the UK side. So
Exactly.
it's promising to see that Black History Month finally had some power, some weight. Yeah. Exactly. So we started our brand, and it was really highlighting Black British scientific excellence. We pieced it and grew from that point throughout the years. We started engaging with universities, seeing how we could offer our services, which included mentoring, public speaking. We did a few really, really great and pivotal workshops at career fairs. And before long, we really started getting that attention. We had to solidify the message and formalize the brand, which we built off the principles of STEM, STEM. So let's talk about our core values, and maybe that will be helpful for the listeners to see what's really grounded us and what's been the basis, the root of our cultivation.
I think we both worked in the corporate industries for combined over 20 years now, and you hear about missions and mission statements and values and visions, and sometimes they feel a bit clickbaity. But as we were setting up our organization, we realized actually we need a guiding star, which was our mission statement. So after a lot of brainstorming and thinking about what we were trying to do and how we were going about achieving it, we decided that our mission was nurturing the next generation in STEM to achieve excellence beyond the limitations of social and racial equity. And a lot of that came from us kind of looking back at our early careers and the trials and tribulations we'd been through, the challenges, and thinking, okay, if I was looking back at a younger Clive, what would be the advice I'd give him? And so kind of being the gaps that we needed to some extent. So as you mentioned, mentoring was key. There's so many gems that I've picked up on the way that if I had them at the beginning of the journey, maybe the journey would have been a bit smoother, or maybe it would have been a bit faster. Exactly. So it's about giving these gems to the next generation, so that when they're starting off, they're going on the path that we've already trodden on. They're not having to clear savannas and deserts. They're going somewhere where others have been. So that was really key. And again, I think we wanted to make sure that our values were a bit of a reflection. So not only important to us, but important to the people that we're working with as well.
Yes.
So if you want to talk maybe briefly about our Vanta STEM values?
Yeah, sure. So we got S for the self. So one of the things that we've definitely realized, coming up in our careers and also in our personal lives, one of the only things that you can control is actually just yourself. And we picture the self as a flower. So at the core is you, and then surrounding you are your self petals. So this can be self-awareness, self-belief, self-confidence, self-love, self-control,
self-esteem,
self-discipline, self-esteem. There's many, many words that you can put after self. And we use them as a way to ground ourselves and as a way to, it's sort of like setting your first foundation.
Yeah.
You build off the foundation of the self, and, getting things like your self-belief and your self-concept in line mean that you can go through 100 rejections and still not feel like you failed.
Exactly. Exactly.
You have, you're more able to come up against imposter syndrome and feel like, actually, you know what? I am supposed to be here. I am worthy. I have the skills and the credentials, and I'm going to be successful. So,
That's right.
The first foundation of self was, I think, something that we both shared. And I think it's probably the most important place to start. And then, of course, you have technical excellence, given that it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You're not going to get very far without, a good technical basis in whatever your subject might be. So for chemistry, you want to have skills in organic chemistry. You want to know the periodic table inside and out. You want to be, good with analytical instrumentation. But you also maybe want to have explored different types of software. So there's Python, which is for coding, but it's also for calculations and data analysis. There's Minitab for statistical analysis. There's all of these programs that you can, either go on courses to learn about, or of course, there's the internet, and you can use just whatever opportunity and time that you have to upskill. And, as an employer, you were talking about fine margins earlier. Everyone's got a degree, and maybe the difference is one person has a distinction and one person has a commendation. If you can one-up that and say, but I'm also skilled in all of these different types of software. I'm also skilled in design of experiment. These are the things that are going to get you forward.
That's right.
That's the S and the T. You want to talk about the E and M?
Yeah. So the next one is equity. And I think the emphasis for including equity was the importance of the differentiation between equity and equality. And I think we've got it in a graphic that we'll put up as well. Equity is where, for a very layman example, you give everyone £5 to get to the town centre. And that's all well and good. You've done something, you've given everyone some support, but there'll be some people who their parents can already drive them, they don't need the £5. There'll be some people who are without that £5, they're not going to get there. And there'll be some people in the middle who could probably get the bus, but actually if you give them £5, they'll hop in an Uber. And all of these different scenarios require different solutions. And so with equity, what you do is you give those who need the most support the most support. And so, for example, maybe the person who's got their parents to drive them there, they don't need that £5. They don't need that £5.
They give £10 to the...
Exactly. So you give £10 to the person who can't get there at all, or who's relying on that £5 to get the bus there, so they can get an Uber there. And then you give £5 to the person who was going to get the bus with that £5, but now they've got the extra £5. Now they can all get an Uber. So now everyone gets there by car. And so that was kind of our thought process behind equity. And you see this displayed in race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, so many different caveats. And I think from our perspective, we've experienced it as black males. But I think we can also relate to what it's like being a black woman, and the double layer of not only going through the trials and tribulations as a black person, but also as a woman as well. So an added layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
And we think that is really important. I think we start from an ethnic background because that's where our experience has been, but we're also advocates and allies for other emotions and movements as well.
Intersectionality is key. Exactly. Understanding where all of these concepts cross over and how they either advantage or disadvantage people.
Exactly. So that's equity. The last one is mindset. And again, a really, really important part of not only what we try to achieve, but what we try to instill in people as well. And for example, rejection letters, you're going to get so many of these regardless of if you apply for one job or if you apply for 10. What is important is how you look at them. And so we've touched on the theme already around rejection is redirection. If you look at a rejection letter, I mean, it's okay to get upset about it initially. But after that, okay, what's the constructive feedback? What could I have done better? Did I turn up late for the interview? Was I well prepared for the interview? Are there things that I could have done better? What feedback can I get from the employer? Oh, they were looking for expertise in this area or this area. So then your approach to it is completely different. And then that way, 10 rejection letters become 10 opportunities for you to become incrementally better.
To grow.
Exactly. So rather than looking at them as, oh, no one wants me 10 times, if you take one lesson from each of those, by the time you've got through 20, your CV should be 20 times better. And so mindset's really important. As you mentioned, imposter syndrome. If you can't identify it, you can't deal with it. So understanding the importance of mindset and going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and the importance of things like neuroplasticity, where it's quite evident physically. If you go to the gym, if we do 10 press-ups every day, hopefully we're going to develop some chest. You know, everyone loves a good chest day. But when people if you apply the same practice to your brain and mentally, you don't see it physically. You don't get a bigger head. But actually, if you process data every day on Excel for a month, you're going to be incrementally better.
Yeah.
And by a month time, as they say, it takes 30 days to develop a new habit. So all of these things are really important. And I think that just rounds off our STEM values in terms of selfie flower, technical excellence, equity, and mindset. And yeah, those themes are really important to us.
Love that. I was just thinking as you were talking about mindset, I heard something really interesting the other day. It's that the 10 most successful companies that you've ever heard of all have staggeringly high quote unquote failure rates. So they fail fast and win big, basically.
That's it.
You know, if you're not in a position to experiment and explore and work out what didn't work, then you'll never grow. And that's one of the key parts of the growth mindset, and to take those as opportunities to better yourself rather than as doors that closed.
That's it. That's it.
All right, I think we're getting pretty close to the end of this episode. Just for the benefit of the listeners, we've got loads of great episodes coming up. We're going to deep dive into each one of those values that we've just explored, episode by episode. So we'll do one on the self, one on technical excellence, one on equity, and one on mindset. And we'll share some of the insights from our own careers and some tips that we've picked up along the way. And then we're going to get into the main portion of the podcast series.
I don't think we can we make the announcement yet? Or we have to, I think, you know what?
We'll leave it.
We'll leave it. We'll have
now.
to make sure it's all signed off and approved, but there's something really big in the pipeline. I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you guys, but in line with our values, we want to make sure we've done it properly. So hopefully in the next episode, we should have something to share with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we hope you've enjoyed this first episode. It's been an introduction. There's going to be loads more to come. We'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. So please hit up the comments.
Like and share and subscribe. Please, really helps the podcast to grow. You know the drill by now. You've heard those words loads of times. Like, share, subscribe. But no, it really does go a long way in terms of being able to spread this message, which we personally think is really valuable. And if you agree, if you found it valuable, then it's certainly a click.
That's it. So without further ado, we shall leave you to it.
Good to catch up.
Peace. I enjoyed it. I hope you did it too. Take care. Stay blessed.
See you next time. Peace.
Bless.